Another big win for Celtic over Aberdeen last night, and plenty for us all to talk about. I'm here. Paul has dropped in on us as well. That was a pretty enjoyable game, I thought, Paul.
It was, yeah, plenty to talk about, plenty of excitement, really good, sharp football. Yeah, lots to talk about.
Yes, loads of different players we can touch on. Let's just start with the lineup then, because a number of changes were made, Paul. Looking at that team, probably only Callum McGregor there, who you'd think would start the Scottish Cup final. So we can call that a second string team, but it does strike me looking at that team that it's not a bad second string side. And I would potentially fancy that side to finish second in the Premiership over a long season. What do you reckon?
Yeah, look, I thought that when I looked at the side just before the game started. My initial reaction was there's no other club in Scotland that can put out a team that strong. It's a good, strong side, all kind of seasoned players. Yeah, I was really, really happy with the lineup, and I think we've kind of finally got to that position. We've had injuries and what have you over the season, but finally got to that position where we've got a second player for every position on the pitch pretty much that can come in and do a really, really good job. And the game proved that, obviously. So, yeah, really happy with the lineup.
Yeah. So it was Sinizalo, Ralston, Naropski, Trusty, Schlupp, McGregor, who just always plays. We can maybe touch on that. Macowan, Bernardo, Forrest, Yang, and Kenny. I did groan ever so slightly when I saw Callum McGregor in the starting lineup, just because I just feel like he wants or he needs a rest. But I guess everything McGregor says is that he wants to continue playing, and I guess he doesn't have the Scotland stuff anymore. And I guess he did get half an hour at the end, and he's obviously so important. But it's funny how even when you change the whole team, McGregor's still there. Just looking to next season, is that could we do with a deputy to McGregor, someone who maybe could step in for the occasional games, or does that matter?
I think we could, and I think we've never quite found that in terms of the style of play, have we? So we've had players that will bring in at number 6, but they don't do the same job McGregor does. I actually think Luke Macowan in the longer term could do that role. And McGregor himself, earlier in his career, was more of a forward-going player, more of an offensive player, and he'd been moulded into that role. And I think if anything, McCowan's got the intelligence to do that role. So, yeah. Maybe that's just me. Maybe we'll never ever see that. But I think going forward, we could. I'd like to have a look at that if we could. Yeah. But yeah,
I hadn't actually thought about that, because see when you look at Macowan these days, it's quite like watching McGregor in his very early days.
Yeah, definitely. He's so good in the ball and he's so intelligent. And I think those are the two things you need to do that role that McGregor does just now. Being able to move between the lines, being able to find that yard of space, and being comfortable to receive the ball in kind of dangerous areas with players around you. I think McCowan's got all of those things. So yeah, I like to see it, but like I say, it might never happen.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Luke Macowan written down as one of the players from the first half that I just really enjoyed watching. I thought it was a really good performance. The pitch was immaculate at Pittodrie. Clearly been having some good weather, and it just helps us so much, doesn't it, when you go to a ground like that quite often the pitch can be difficult for us, but just having a surface where we're allowed to play it from the back is such a good thing for this Celtic team. And I think you noticed that, to be honest. I mean, Aberdeen were pressing us quite a lot, but yeah, there was maybe a few moments, a few kind of lapses or whatever, but I thought generally, to be honest, throughout the match, but especially early on, we really played out well. I've got Macowan written down as being, I just love watching Luke Macowan. He's such an easy player on the eye, and people often talk about Scotland doesn't produce these wonderful technical players that we see elsewhere. Luke Macowan is I guess he goes against all of that kind of notion, because he's what a lovely player to watch. The way he controls the ball, the way he sweeps the ball out with that left foot. Obviously scores a goal later in the game as well, but he's probably never going to be a starter for us in the major games unless there's injuries. But what a really good signing he's been.
Yeah, he's been excellent, and I think he'd be thoroughly happy with his first season. I think that, is it 7 goals now he's scored? He's just really good to watch. Like you say, he makes plenty in the game, and the way he keeps the game ticking over and can pick a pass. You're maybe only looking at Hatate, for example, that will pick that type of pass, but Macowan can do that as well. So really good to watch. And And the fact that he's Scottish almost makes him more of a joy to watch him, doesn't it? That you just know that he's one of our own. He's a homegrown Scottish player, not that he's grown up at Celtic. But yeah, there's just all that packaged together makes it a delight to watch someone kind of controlling the game like that.
Yeah, Macowan was great. James Forrest as well. Again, just I guess another Scottish player who's just really good to watch. We can touch on James a little bit later on. First half thoughts, what did you make of it?
Yeah, I thought it started reasonably slowly. I thought probably the first 20 minutes of the game, there was a lot of kind of sideways passing between the centre backs. We saw that earlier in the season, but kind of without purpose. And I just thought we were growing into the game. Aberdeen pressed pretty well, I thought, at the start, but I think the centre backs always look comfortable. I have to say, and I know we've talked about various players, I really like Mike Nawrocki, or Nawrocki,
Okay.
or how we pronounce it. I know he's not everyone's cup
You
of
like
tea.
Mike?
I like Mike. Yeah, he just never looks flustered. I just think he's a real good footballer, and I think the injury record's really gone against him at Celtic, because I think he would have got a lot more time in the first team. So I just really enjoy the way that he brings. Just watching him bring down a long ball with a beautiful touch. His passing range is really good. He's kind of unflappable, and those last ditch challenges that he put in are generally good. So that was nice to watch him. The first half, so first 20 minutes, we were growing into the game, and then I think we started sparking off a little bit with some nice moves, and then kind of flared up from there. It was good.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going back to Nawrocki. I was going to give you a controversial statement to deal with, and that is that for me, Mike Nawrocki looks a better option than Austin Trusty. And Trusty's had his good moments this season. I'm certainly not writing him off, but I don't know. I think Nawrocki, when he's played, has looked more composed. He looks a bit stronger in the tackle to me. He looks more of a threat in an attacking sense as well, which you see, which is a really good goal. I don't know if it was his head or if he kind of glanced it onto his shoulder, but it was a great goal. The question would be, does Brendan Rodgers fancy him enough? Because it's clear that he doesn't really like him too much, I don't think, because for example at the weekend a lot of people expecting Nawrocki to play and he didn't. So does he have any future at the club? Because I agree with you, I quite like him.
Yeah, I think as I was thinking about this, I thought exactly the same. If my top two centre backs, my best two centre backs for me are Cameron Carter-Vickers and Nawrocki. I just really like how he plays. If I was, and clearly it's not up to me, but if I was making the decisions over what we do in the summer, I would keep one of Trusty and Scales and look to bring in another very, very good left-sided central defender. And I would look to extend Nawrocki's deal as backup to Carter-Vickers, because really, do you want Carter-Vickers playing more than maybe 35, 40 games a season? He picks up little niggles here and there. So I think Nawrocki's an excellent deputy to bring in, whether it's cup games and maybe 5 or 10 league games, that sort of thing. I just really like him, and I thought he did well today, as he's always done when he's come in.
I really hope we see more of him. I've just got my doubts whether he has any future at the club, but I don't know. I think there's something there. As I say, I think he's quite composed, and he's not been perfect in his career so far. I actually remember a game at Pittodrie, funnily enough, when we were really struggling last season, when he was turned inside out and had a bit of a nightmare that day. But generally, he came into the derby we lost at Celtic Park, and he was probably our best player that day. So arrived at the club with really good pedigree. He was playing with Legia, who are, a big club in a half decent league, a lot of pressure on them. So quite highly rated, pretty young. I hope we see more of him, but I've got my doubts. The same goes, I guess, for Yang, who I do think has a future at the club. I think he's really useful. I think there's a player in there. Up until probably fairly recently, maybe the start of this calendar year, I always felt that he would do nice wee things, but he didn't ever really look a threat in terms of scoring goals or assisting goals. I think there's been a big change there. Like he really looks threatening. That first half there, he obviously gets his goal, which by the way is a really good finish. Like he was really sharp onto that. He had a couple of headers earlier on in the game. Like he's getting into dangerous areas now at the back post. And also when he's got the ball at his feet, I think he looks better as well. He had a cutback early on in the game for Bernardo that I thought was good. There was a moment in the second half where I think he chopped one of the Aberdeen players, and that was neat. So if I'm looking at players next season that I want to see more of, and I really want, and I have high hopes for, Yang's at the top of the list for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way he takes men on is great. He seems to be fairly fearless in terms of looking for the ball, taking the ball, moving with it, and he's making better and better decisions. I think similar to yourself. I think back to the game where we brought him on the game against Rangers. We brought him on as a substitute, and he doesn't track Matondo back, was it? And Matondo scores a screamer. And I remember at that point thinking, I'm not sure about him. I think he's too young, too raw. I don't think he's going to make it. But since then, he seems to have improved so much, and kind of grown in confidence. And it's been plain to see again. What's that? Is that 6 goals he's got this season? So for a very much a bit part player, it's a great contribution, and he's just again exciting to watch. So I suppose the trouble is though, he's not going to be a first choice winger, at least not in the near future. And if you're behind when Jota comes back, Maeda, Kuhn, Forrest, even if you're not adding another winger on top of the 4 of them, would it be better to farm him out to an Aberdeen or someone next year, even one of the Scottish clubs that's going to be playing in Europe perhaps, and see him get real good minutes of football, or an English Championship club or something like that? Because as much as I want to see him do well at Celtic, I think he needs more football to develop more, and I'm not sure he'll get that next year.
Yeah, I could see some sort of merit in that. For me, he's potentially reached the point where I want to see him at Celtic rather than being loaned out. I just feel like he's got stuff to offer us. Yeah, he's not going to be a first choice winger. We're probably going to sign a winger in the summer as well. But I still think he can get a lot of game time, and you know, have him now as a guy coming off the bench every game next season. Like I think he's reached that point. I think he's kind of waiting to explode. I just sense something with Yang, that there's a potential superstar there. I think there's a lot of his game he really needs to still work on, but he's going to be doing that with a manager. But you know, he's working under the right manager in terms of development. I like his attitude. I just really like his hunger getting in at the back post to score goals. Liel Abada was like famous for doing that, wasn't he? He made a habit of that, and I see a fair bit of Abada in Yang, and if Yang could grow to be a player like Abada, you know, we'd all be delighted with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's about game time. So
yeah,
in order to get the game time he needs, if he's got to leave, I would rather he do that than sit on the bench at Celtic and get 5 minutes here and there. If he can get game time at Celtic, then absolutely, because you're then bringing him into the style of football that we play and kind of getting him more and more into the culture of the club. One other thing I would say about him is I think he's a good size. Like he's not short, I don't think. So again, coming in at the back post, he seems more of the sort of player perhaps that can win headers as well. And so for a winger to be that kind of height always goes in their favour as well, and gives you another option, you know, when you're crossing the ball in, rather than just being able to play with their feet. So yeah, I think it's all, for me, it's all about game time, and if he can get that at Celtic, then so much the better.
Johnny Kenny, what did we make of his performance? His first start for the club, first goal for the club. I think probably the biggest celebration of the game, seeing I mean, he's not necessarily a homegrown player, but he's a young Irish player who's been at the club for a few years, finally gets his first start. I thought up until that point, I thought he did all right. Had a couple of kind of sights of goal where I didn't think he looked particularly convincing, but that's fine. I thought some of his movement was really good, but just delighted for him to get that goal, and he heads it in really well.
Yeah, he does. I agree with you in terms of the sort of half chances that he had before that. He seems more comfortable in the box than he does kind of running into the box, if that makes sense. So
yeah.
So he doesn't seem the sort of player that's going to beat a man or sort of sprint past a defensive line or what have you. Whereas when he's in the box, when the ball's getting crossed in, he looks a lot more dangerous. So I think he's a different type of striker to Maeda, for example. So I think either's a bit quicker and obviously a bit further down the line in terms of development. But yeah, I think Johnny Kenny's a useful striker, and as a penalty box striker to have on the bench with that sort of 10-15 minutes to go, I think he can do things. Again, I wonder whether Brendan feels that next season is the time to have him in, because he's talked about having that young striker that's going to be there behind the main two strikers. And I wonder if next season's the season for him where he'll maybe make a bit of an impact.
It's a good point, because I was thinking Johnny Kenny is someone who'd be perfect for a loan out. A team like Aberdeen, for example, But yeah, Brendan Rodgers has spoken about ideally he wants 3 forwards at the club. So you're talking Ida, potentially Daizen Maeda might be viewed as the third option, and maybe Kenny does go out on loan next year if we sign another forward. But it's too early to say with him, but I think the fact he scored today was really important. Like, that's obviously the most important thing when you're a forward for Celtic, and he took that goal really well. So delighted about that. Another young player who I'm quite excited about. It's not like me to get a bit excited with a 20-minute cameo, but Sean McArdle looked like Lionel Messi out there. He was unbelievable. I mean, that first touch, he's dipping in with the left, he's knocking balls round the corner, he looked strong, he didn't give the ball away once, he got involved in the 5th goal. Oh, what a talent.
Yeah, he's brimming with confidence, you can tell. He seems to have the talent to go along with it, but he was just, I think, desperate to get out there and make his mark. And look, it's a good time to come on as well when we're well in control of the game, and he can do that. But yeah, he looked very, very sharp and very promising. And I think it was good to see the players happy to give the ball to him, willing to give the ball to him, and let him move with it and let him run with it. Clearly, they trust him as well. So, I think he's got a big, big future ahead of him. I mean, saying that after one game, but
we should say we're. I mean, I'm kind of being facetious. We're obviously not going to get carried away. It was 20 minutes against an Aberdeen team who, by the way, side point, second half, thought Aberdeen were a bit of a shambles, to be honest. I mean, I thought they completely went in that game and we just completely ran over the top of them. But he was so available. I thought he was so involved when he came on. Just keep playing him. Get him in for half an hour on Trophy Day as well at Celtic Park. I know he came on against Hibs last week, but that's an even bigger occasion this Saturday. Give him a chance to play there and hopefully gets a big pre-season. It's interesting that the manager's played him now twice in a row. So I think there's something there, whether he's getting really good reports. I know the manager was at the recent Glasgow Cup final, wasn't he? So I'm assuming McArdle would have played there. So maybe he's caught Brendan Rodgers' eye. I think the fact that he's playing him tells us that Brendan Rodgers really likes his attitude, because we know Brendan Rodgers is absolutely huge in that, and it doesn't matter how talented you are, if you don't have the right attitude, you won't play, as people who have seen that Liverpool behind the scenes documentary all those years ago know. So I like him. I mean, oh God, if he takes off and he, realises the early potential or whatever, having a young player with that kind of ability, that left foot, that awareness, that kind of football brain is very exciting.
It is, and I think I wonder how much this is to do with the fact that we've lost some young players over the last few years because of a lack of first team opportunities. So don't get me wrong, I think he's earned this spot today, and he's done very well when he's come on. But I just look at the Vatas of this world and players that you look back and think, could we have done more? Could we have blooded them a bit more, got them more involved with the first team, got them a bit more game time? Hopefully maybe that's going to happen with him, and he sees that he's got a future at Celtic rather than feeling that he's got to go somewhere else, English Championship, whatever it is, to get football. So yeah, if that's the takeaway from some of the players that we've lost, and we end up keeping one or two really good young players, so much the better.
Because again, not going over the top, but sometimes you can tell with these young players pretty quickly if they've got something. Like Kieran Tierney, you could tell James Forrest scored in his debut, didn't he? And Callum McGregor. So hopefully that's the case with young Sean McArdle, who I earlier found out I'm 11 years older than, which is an absolute disgrace that as a Celtic player is 11 years younger than me. Dear oh dear.
I think, thanks Hamish, I think I probably need a scientific calculator to work out how much younger than me is.
Oh, it's terrifying stuff that these people, I think I worked out that when I was in leaving secondary school, he was like P2, which is just troubling. And he's now tearing it up for Celtic, but great stuff. Okay, today's show has been created in affiliation with NordVPN. Don't miss your favourite content, even when travelling. Stay at home virtually now. NordVPN allowed me to watch Sky Sports post-match coverage, which meant I got to see the brilliant full-time scenes. I'm sure you'll have seen these as well. James Forrest, typically not keen to take the adulation of the Celtic support at the end. I think he had 3 separate goes at one to do the thing, turning away, and the players literally shoving him forward. It was I found that really funny. and then he eventually goes for it. And Johnny Kenny got his shot at it as well. So those were great scenes.
Brilliant. I love how humble Jamesy is. I love the fact that he just shuns the limelight completely. He's just not that type of character, and it's nice to see. It's nice to see that it's persisted. And clearly, if when someone's been in the club that long, you'd imagine that Callum McGregor goes off and he hands him the armband. But clearly, again, it's just not Jamesy's type of character, is it? He's not that type of temperament. He wants to be on the pitch, do his thing, and do it quietly, if you like. And there's a lot to be said for a character like that, I think.
And he's also finally got a song. It only took 15 years. We get Jamesy, oh Jamesy Forrest, oh Jamesy Forrest on the wing, which is was that the Jimmy Johnson one, famously, wasn't it? So I don't know why it's taken a decade and a half for someone to realise that Jamesy Forrest kind of works in the same way that Jimmy Johnson does. But I'm delighted at that. I mean, he deserves everything, James Forrest. He's an amazing guy.
Yeah, he is. He's done really well. It was funny to hear. I saw the BBC kind of breakdown highlights afterwards, to hear Charlie McGrew talking about how funny the statue of Jamesy Forrest is going to look outside the ground because it will be all shoulders and no neck.
Brilliant.
We love a lot of affection there. Yeah.
Maybe one day. Okay, NordVPN can make your phone or laptop appear like it's in another country, making it great for accessing content while travelling. It also keeps you safe online with just a single click. As a Celtic AM viewer or listener, you can use our link nordvpn.com/Celtic AM to get up to 73% off and an extra 3 months. There's no risk either with NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. nordvpn.com/Celtic AM. There was a kind of what would you call it? A worrying moment at the end of the game with Reo Hatate, who came on. Fair to say, Brendan Rodgers not happy at all with the challenge made by Aberdeen's player Pape Gueye, which left Hatate limping. I think he had ice on his knee as well. Brendan Rodgers livid during the game, wasn't he? As angry as you'll ever see him. And after the game as well, not holding back. He says, it was a poor challenge. The guy had lost his head a bit at the end. He left his leg there and the player came right through him. We will see how he is. And that's about as strong as you're ever going to hear Brendan Rodgers. He never calls out opposition players for stuff. So he felt very strongly that the challenge was not necessary. And it was right in front of him as well, wasn't it? But that we're hoping Hatate's all right, because that looked a bit of a worry.
Yeah, it did. Strangely, I don't know if it's just the television angles. It just looked like a 50-50 ball to me, and clearly it's right in front of Brendan, so he sees more of it. It looked as if the both of them connect with the ball at the same time. I don't know whether it's a jar of the knee or whether there's been a knock on knees or whatever it is, but I wasn't kind of up in arms about it straight away, but clearly right in front of Brendan, he sees something that I didn't see. And yeah, you would just hope they can wrap him up in cotton wool that he'll be okay for the cup final, because he is a key player for us. As much as we've talked about how well the second string did, he's a very, very classy operator, and you want to have him in there.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be different teams for the final, so it's hard to read too much into that game. But you do fancy that, don't you, at Hampden? If our first team fancies that, then that could be an amazing afternoon.
Yeah, I think so. Look at the last time we played them at Hampden, it was only going one way, wasn't it? So I just think on this kind of form, with this momentum that we've got just now, last game of the season, leave everything out there on the pitch. I can't see it going any way other than a Celtic win. Really can't.
And before that, Saturday, Trophy Day, chance to... I just love Trophy Day. I mean, it's we know that Scottish Cup finals to come, and that's the game that really excites you, because there's something really on the line in that game. But Celtic Park packed, Saturday afternoon, Saturday lunchtime. Hopefully the weather's great. It usually is for Trophy Day, and can't wait for that one. Yeah,
if tonight was anything to go by, tonight's weather up in Aberdeen, then the weather will be great. But I guess it's never a guarantee, is it? It's lovely always to see the players having their kids out in the pitch at the end of Trophy Day, and just that real. Brendan talks about sacrifices they made through the season, and I think there's a lot goes on with players and with the team that we don't see. A lot that's kind of kept behind closed doors. I'm sure there's players that are sort of staying away from their families. Some of the players that have come up, I don't know about Jeff Sloop and guys like that. So I think there's so much energy, emotion, determination, and as he says, potentially sacrifice goes into putting together a winning season. So to see them kind of show that sort of relief and release out in the pitch, it'll be great. And we saw a little bit, I suppose, up at United when we clinched the league. So to see that on Trophy Day and see them just be able to let their hair down a bit, it'll be great.
Yeah, can't wait for that. Just a final note, everyone. The team were wearing black armbands for the game at Pittodrie in honour of former chairman Jack McGinn, who has died at the age of 92. So a nice tribute from Celtic there. And Paul, we move forwards. I don't know when we'll catch up with you again, some stage over the summer, I'm sure. But enjoy the rest of the season, and thanks again for coming on.
My pleasure. Yep, have a good one.
Okay, everyone, appreciate your time once again. Let me know what you made of the game, what you made of Gueye's tackle or various other things that you feel strongly about. I'll tackle myself these comments tomorrow and also look ahead to Trophy Day.